morning, everyone. Welcome to the January 10th Transit Technical Advisory Committee. Let's go and get started with introductions in the room. I'm Dana Ture with SCTA. Actually, we're doing this by agency. The easiest for a quorum. Okay. Actually, I think I could just tell that we have one, so we're good. So we'll just go around the room. I'll pass it over to you, Emily.
Okay, Emily Betts with SMART. Rachel E. with Santa Rosa City Bus.
Brian Alvey, County Transit.
Chris Barney, Sonoma County Transportation Authority, Regional Climate Protection Authority.
Kathleen Sullivan, Marine Transit.
David Davenport with the second longest agency name is like Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transportation District.
All right, and then let's turn it over to those on Zoom.
Ross Clendetton, SCTA-RCPA.
Jacob Brown from Golden Gate Transit.
Stephen Schmitz from Sonoma County Transit.
All right, and I just saw two other people join. If you're just joined Zoom, if you could unmute yourself and introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Hi, Joanne Parker, SMART.
All right, I can't quite see that far, but I think a couple more people just joined Zoom. If you just join Zoom and have it introduce yourself, if you could go ahead and do that, that'd be great.
Dave Ripper, SCTA-RCPA.
See Zoe Unbra and Lauren D.
Okay. Thank you. All right, then we will go on to item number 2, public comment on items not on the agenda. So if there are any members of the public on Zoom and you would like to make a comment on any item not on the agenda, please go ahead and raise your hand or just unmute yourself and speak up. All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 3. Approval of the meeting notes from November 8th. Anyone have any comments or corrections? If not, we can take a motion.
I move to approve.
Thank you. All right, item number 4 is a list of our matrix of the SCTA and RCPA committee meeting dates for 2024. This is just for your information. And then let's go ahead and move on to the community-based transportation planning item. And Chris Barney has a presentation to share.
Yeah, and it should be pretty short. I know I've talked with some of you about our plans for the community-based transportation planning efforts that will be kicking off this year in Santa Rosa and Rohnert Park, but I just wanted to provide an update to the entire group on kind of what's going on so we can be coordinated on that. So let me go ahead and get this up on the screen. All right. So just a quick update on what the community-based transportation planning program is. This is a regional program that's funded through MTC. And real focus is to improve access and mobility for underserved and marginalized communities, focused on communities of concern. For the recent geographies, MTC has been using equity priority communities. So, and the goal of the program is to really identify barriers, issues with transportation in these communities, and then come up with a list of solutions. So have a project list at the end that can be prioritized for funding. So, you know, there's a lot that shows up on there: bike ped, active transportation projects, but also transit improvements down to like stop improvements and stuff like that. So Rachel actually worked on one of the CBTPs for the Roseland area, so very familiar with the program. So here's a look at the current array of equity priority communities in Sonoma County. So you can see quite a large one out in the Russian River area. Good coverage in Santa Rosa and down in Roner Park. A few areas are popping up, which happened before, and then the Springs area in Sonoma Valley. And this is all based on a formula MTC uses, looking at minority populations, disabled groups, incomes, things like that. So we've put together a number of community-based transportation plans in the past. One in Santa Rosa in the Roseland area, one in the Russian River area, Sonoma Valley Springs area, and Central Healdsburg. And kind of the, you know, the final main deliverable of those was the planning document, that list of projects. And then as part of our last comprehensive transportation plan update, Dana went through the list of projects and provided information on what's been done and what's still outstanding. So we have that as a resource that was developed through this program as well. And also as part of the last CTP, we did some not geographically focused outreach, just working with community-based organizations across the county, trying to reach people that didn't fit in these groups, right? Because when you're looking at these regionally, there's a lot of disadvantage and poverty in areas that aren't clustered together in Sonoma County. So the effort was to kind of identify issues that people were facing across the county. So we have a list of issues identified through the plan map as well. So as I mentioned before, there are a number of different projects that have been identified as part of this process: transit routes and stops. The Roseland route was one of the major things identified in the Roseland plan that was implemented. It was Route 19, but I never forget what route it is now. But also improved transit headways, bicycle and pedestrian improvements, sidewalk connections, traveler information safety. So a list of types of improvements that local residents would like to see. And the idea is to line these up with funding. So most of you are probably familiar with the old Lifeline transportation funding program. So that's morphing into something called CARE. So there's kind of a new version of that out sometime this year that'll be targeting these types of identified improvements. So this year we'll be kicking off 2 new efforts, looking at 2 new areas that we haven't in the past. One is in South Santa Rosa along the Santa Rosa Avenue corridor. From about Highway 12 at the north down to Roner Park city limits in the south, and really focused on Santa Rosa Avenue, the commercial and housing area along that corridor. So it includes incorporated city and unincorporated areas, city bus and Sonoma County Transit routes both serve this area. And there are over 10,000 people and over 3,500 households in this area. So pretty significant population. Over 50% of the households have incomes less than 200% of the federal poverty level. So a lot of economic disadvantage there. And over 60% of the population is minority population based on the last census numbers. So as many of you are aware, there's a mix of housing and commercial opportunities in this area, but they're very disconnected, right? It's hard to get around. Maybe a little easier with a car, but hard if you're not in a car. And there are also some safety issues and other issues in there. So yeah, we're going to be looking at this area this year. So the other area that we'll be looking at that just recently popped up as equity priority community in Sonoma County is Central Roner Park. So this is the area focused on Roner Park Expressway and State Farm Drive, near the Smart Station and the commercial areas on the east side of Highway 101. So again, it's pretty heavily populated, over 10,000 people and 4,000 households here. About a third of households are low income, over 50% minority population there. And it's, you know, it's similar in a lot of ways to the Santa Rosa Avenue corridor. There's difficult connections between where people live and where they want to go. So very auto oriented. But there's a lot of other planning activities happening in this area at the same time too. So it's kind of a good time to be looking at this specifically and tie into the Rohnert Park general plan update, the development activities that are happening in the State Farm site. So a lot of different things going on. And so that's the second side we'll be looking at. Is this phase. So this is the schedule and kind of list of tasks that we're looking at. We're taking an item to our board in February, asking for authorization to release an RFP to get a consultant on board to help lead the project. One of the first things we'll be doing with the consultant is establishing the stakeholder committee, so getting city staff on board. We'd love to have all of you with service in the area as part of that as well. Very important partners in that process. So that will be one of the first things, is to get that going. And then working with the consultant and the stakeholder committee to develop an outreach strategy. So how many meetings, right, where they should happen, who should be contacted. So get that all worked out. And then work with those groups to come up with that list, right? What are the gaps and barriers? And then talk about solutions, right? So, and a lot of these are pretty detailed because we're talking to the community, right? Like small sidewalk gaps and, you know, maybe a shelter at a bus stop, you know, down to that level. So, so in the end, we'll have that list. We'll work with the community and the stakeholders to prioritize that, develop the final plan, and then present that to the stakeholder group, the community, and our board. So then we'll have that document ready and the list that can be used to go out for funding when it comes online in the end. So that's the kind of the end goal, to have that list and start funding some of these projects through NBC programs. So I've already covered this basically, but yeah, we want that list of community identified projects. The final report and summary will be useful. We've already talked to Santa Rosa and other folks about syncing up a lot of our outreach activities, so we're not going out to the same groups over and over again and asking the same questions. So we'll be getting outreach information from like the active transportation plan outreach and other outreach efforts. And we've talked to Santa Rosa about the South Santa Rosa planning effort and having joint meetings, right? We can cover similar things and getting outreach together. So, you know, I think that'll be really valuable in trying to streamline. That'll be really important. And these are the types of outreach we'll be conducting: community meetings, public hearings. I'm sure we'll have some sort of web component. You know, we've used map-based applications before where people can drop dots and talk about issues and ideas. And then we'll be taking drafts to our committees and our board as well, that we'll be taking comments on. So that's where we're at right now. Just wanted to give everyone an update. So things will be probably speeding up at the end of February, early March. So it's pretty busy right now getting the RFP materials together and organizing procurement. But yeah, once we get that going, we'll really kick off. So, and on that, if anyone's interested in being part of the procurement process, reviewing proposals and things like that, please let me know. So we're looking for support. But yeah, that's where we're at. Happy to take any comments or questions, and I'll bring regular updates back to this group as things proceed.
I just have a quick question. So I'm glad that you've already connected with Santa Rosa planning staff around the specific plan. And I guess, how do you see those timelines matching up from what you know now? I mean, it seems like the CBTV might be on a faster timeframe potentially than the specific plan just because of the scope. But I don't know if you guys have gotten to that level of detail. I'm just wondering, like, it'd be nice if the recommendations or the plans could be harmonized in some way, but I'm not sure if you think that's totally feasible based on the timelines or.
We haven't gotten to that level of detail yet. We've scheduled. I think it's bi-monthly check-in
Oh, cool.
meetings to coordinate.
Yeah, yeah.
So once things get going, we could probably do one every month. Frequently to
Mhm.
kind of work all of that out. This planning efforts may be a little bit smaller.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It's really focused on those transportation gaps and
Mhm.
issues, but I can see a lot of this flowing right into that.
Yeah, that's
that
true.
plan.
Yeah,
So if this is going faster and done, wrapped up earlier.
yeah, I could inform the specific one. Yeah,
Yeah, that list or portions of that list could be part of that.
Yeah.
larger plan.
okay, that's great.
So,
Nice.
one other thing I, forgot to mention is Roanoke Park has a little bit of money from MTC too, as well, to look at the Copeland Creek overcrossing area. So they'd like to wrap that in as part of the Roanoke Park effort as well. So do some really focused effort on that. So right now, there's a culvert that's heavily used as a 101 crossing, so they'd like to formalize that. And find out, what the community would like to see there. So there's opportunities to kind of work together.
Thank you, Chris. Any other questions or comments?
I guess what's the funding level that you estimate for this?
So to fund the actual planning process is 245,000. So the idea is to get one consultant on board to do both plans. So, yeah, that's what we have from MTC, and that's, we'll get the work done in that, using that budget. So, the scope is pretty general right now, but if we have to scale things back or if we have room to grow, we'll go ahead and do that within the
The
budget.
funding for the projects, what do you anticipate that?
Oh, God, yeah, so the current target for the CARE program is at least $1 million per county. But the regional number is 22 million for the first cycle. So if we have a good list of projects we could go after, we could get over that minimum. That's just kind of the target that they're looking at having each county receive.
These are state funds.
Good question, Dana.
I believe that some of the funds are. from the public.
Yes.
It's very different than the Lifeline, the different funding sources from Lifeline, even though it's kind of a continuation,
Yeah, yeah,
evolution
yeah.
of that. Let me just make it look it up.
Yeah, there are 3 different pieces. I know there's OBAG funding in there. There's a smaller amount that's completely, it's definitely not federal, that can be used for all sorts of things. And so there's a small portion of that program that's going to be focused on CBO support. And we'll be trying to get some of that money to help out with public outreach, providing stipends for the people participating in meetings and providing incentives and things like that, which are difficult with the federal funds. So I know there's a small amount there. So if any of you are interested in that type of work as well, there's a small portion that's completely out of the federal and Caltrans process. So, but the OBAG funds, yeah, they're definitely more hoops to jump through on that. But I can take a look and send out a breakdown of the different fund sources there.
Are the existing plans you've completed on the SCTA website?
They're linked on the SCTA website. We do have a community-based transportation plan section on our website, which links to the MTC website, which has our floor plans. And then all the plans across the region. So if you're interested in other.
So yeah, it looks like REAP funds, OBAG funds, and STP, CMAC, and other local funds available from MTC. So there's kind of a number, it's a yes, conglomeration of various different fund sources.
All those combined equal the 22 million.
Yeah.
I'll try and get a breakdown on how that flows. And, you know, the care team is relatively new and they're having some staffing issues, so they were intending on having a call for projects come out last fall, and it's been pushed out and pushed out, so once that goes live, we'll make sure you're all aware and we can send the information on where the application is. But there is information on what types of projects in the program available now. So, yeah, we can get that sent out.
Yeah.
After the meeting.
And it looks like the first cycle of funding covers a 4-year programming cycle, so I'm not sure how frequently they'll do calls for projects, but based on that, it may be 3 or 4 years.
And the call will be coming. So MTC will be administering and managing the calls, so the applications will go to MTC and they'll be asking us to basically support their efforts, getting information. Get the information out.
Right now, there's 2 project areas, Ronan Park and Santa Rosa Avenue.
Right, but all the older area, all the other CBTV areas that were already studied are eligible as well.
Yeah, so any of those projects that have not been completed, and there are many,
Yeah.
many recommendations in that have not, there hasn't been any movement on. Definitely opportunities there. All right. Go ahead and move on to item number 6 then. I wanted to touch base on Clipper Start and promotion, given that all of transit agencies are now at a 50% discount, and just wanted to check in on what those that have just switched from 20 to 50% discount, if there's been some marketing efforts, or if there's kind of some efforts to join on what the other agencies have been doing that are already or that have had 50% discount for a while now. So just wanted to kind of check in general on that, and yeah, see if there's any opportunities there for.
Yeah, I think 10 ads lean up on the back of the buses.
Okay.
Interior.
Great.
And so, but I don't know in terms of usage for the first 8 days. I don't know.
Yeah, no information yet. That makes sense.
And we got the ads, updated 50% ads from Clipper 2. We'll be putting those up definitely inside the buses. I think some exterior and possibly shelter ads.
Oh, good.
Yeah, same. I guess, one thing I've been wondering about, and I've been out for a bit, so I might have missed some conversations, but I think a really key piece of the marketing is to the CBOs that interact with the population that we're trying to get this out to. So, I'm a little bit unclear on whether there's anything happening on the MTC side related to that, or if that's just sort of all on us to do that outreach. I know that they have a list of folks they've worked with in each county, but I don't know. But I think that should happen, whether we do it or they do it. I'm just asking the question, see if anybody knows.
Yeah, that kind of came up at a meeting we had last week. Is there some entity people know about that kind of coordinates human services regionally, kind of the equivalent of MTC? If so, could we work through that and spread it downward through their networks, better integrated into the existing kind of social nets throughout the region? So if people apply for help, this can be one additional program.
Right.
to add into that.
And I believe that did occur with the initial launch of Clipper Start, the MTC, because I have this recollection of sending MTC, the organizations in Santa Rosa and contact points. And so, I know there's been a lot of turnover everywhere, but I guess it's a question we just need to ask if they're doing anything. We should do that. If anyone on the team is.
Right.
I know that database does exist. This came up in another
Yeah,
meeting this week.
It wasn't what?
It came up in another meeting this week that database, that there is an entity that houses all the information.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say for Marin Transit that we haven't, because Clipper 2 is still pending. And it's really there's some things that it will help every customer with that, like funds availability will be instantaneous instead of having there be a big delay, like that's affecting Clipper customers today. But there's some other changes that are unique to Marin Transit that will make the system just a lot more usable for our riders. So we're actually holding off on doing a big push so that we don't have people get on board and have a bad experience and then never try Clipper again. So we're actually going to do our big advertising push post Clipper 2, which hopefully will be this fall.
Is it installed on your fleet?
It's all installed, but we're fully embedded in the Golden Gate fare structure.
I see.
So none of our fare products are available. Customers have to tap on and tap off. And if they don't tap off, they get charged the maximum Golden Gate fare instead of our $2 fare. So there's some like significant penalties. And so until those penalties are resolved and we can say definitively to someone, that will no longer happen to you, we're a little bit worried about doing our big marketing push.
I was gonna say, plus none of your past products are Clipper, right? So it's kind of
Exactly.
awkward to say, well, if you want your multi-ride discounts, go get a paper ticket.
Exactly. So until all those cleared up, we're not doing any extra Clipper pushes, but once that happens, we'll probably be doing a really big Clipper push on all of the discounted Clipper products and just Clipper cards in general. So.
And for Smart, we did put posters on our platforms and maybe our trains. Right? So. Did you see the article, that Marin IJ article about Clipper Start? Yeah. It's interesting that they were pushing.
Pick that up, yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised.
They have a very
Ron gave me a call in the office, like, I have a couple questions for you. I'm like,
Yeah.
What? Who wants numbers on this? That's
Yeah.
not a normal media inquiry, but uptake's been very slow, but I think the 50% off should hopefully help. Because the Clipper market penetration in the North Bay is not super great. Golden Gate Transit and well, obviously Smart because you're a new agency, but our ferry service has a high market share, but the bus market share is not great. It's a little bit under 40%, but that's still leaps and bounds above everybody else in the North Bay outside of Smart. So we have a ways to go. And we have been advertising Clipper Start on our services as well, but we've always had the 50% discount. So there's not that big change for our customers.
I'm curious about, I know there have been discussions about this, but I think what would be ultimate, I think we would all agree what would be most effective is if the eligibility was a little bit more automatic. If you qualify for CalFresh or whatever, that there was a way to just be automatically enrolled and informed and like ideally handed a Clipper card. And I don't know if anyone's heard any further discussion. I think there's probably just not the bandwidth to take that on right now, but it's just something that I know some of our council members are interested in to really try to make the program more easily available. So just put that out there.
Yeah, I know MTC is talking about that.
Okay.
I mean, what I heard in the meeting yesterday is that they're looking to self-verification with the Clipper card in process. So rather than asking the social service agencies to do the verification themselves, basically to have it available and just add it. I think they're looking at that as like a middle ground in terms of effort. But yeah, that's our comment that we've submitted many times, right? Is that this needs to be integrated with the regional processes. Yeah. And also, I mean, I think they're looking at changing the poverty level to local, right, versus national, given the cost of living. So that would be a really good step forward too.
Oh, in terms of Clipper Start, just a fun fact, I just got some data because I need to supply MTC with some information on one of our services. It looks like across our entire bus system, we have about 85 transactions on an average day that are Clipper Start. So that's not a huge number when you think that most people are probably making a round trip. So that's really, 42 people. And our ferry numbers are very, very low. So
Ours
that's,
are 1%.
yeah. Speaking of Clipper Start, just so I know, because of our workflow at Golden Gate, with the shift to a 50% discount for the Sonoma County operators, that reminds me, are any Sonoma County operators, bus operators planning any fare changes for July 1st? Because, you know, our new fare policy is really to try to better match the local fares without undercutting you guys, of course. So I need to know if we need to make fare changes for July 1st, but city bus, Sonoma, Pilgrim, okay, doesn't sound like an issue.
Petaluma Transit's working on our fare free pilot program. We're hoping to have that launched by June 30th at the latest. So I don't know the exact date or details, but we'll have that within a couple weeks or so.
System-wide.
System wide.
That'll be interesting because then that'll make our interagency transfers less relevant. This will probably just be a smile and wave as you get on the bus type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not like a redemption and you have to go to somewhere and get tickets or something, so.
No, nothing like that. There's, as you can imagine, when you think about it, there's probably a dozen things in your head that start swimming around. How do you do this or that? One of the major things we discuss is there a fare media of any sort, some sort of card, or just get on the bus and that's it? We're leaning towards the latter after discussing a lot of the pros and the cons of Clipper. Do we use Clipper or not? The pros and the cons. So those are kind of the pieces that we're just ironing out now. And we're going to put together 1 or 2 pager with more details about how the program works within a couple of weeks that we'll share with the group when we have it. We're getting close to that point.
We are making some tweaks to our fare policy with this fare study, but none of them are gonna change our base fare.
Right, and that would be Clipper 2.0, right? Or are you
No,
thinking things for July 1st?
Some, probably, I don't know, the timing of everything isn't. I don't actually think anything will change for July 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we have enough lead time so that we don't accidentally end up with a gap in something with one of our transfer policies or fare matching.
Yeah,
Just because then our customers have to deal with it.
yeah.
Although Bart's making it hard for us because they've decided to do January 1st fare changes. And so our shop is like, nobody's here on New Year's Day. You want us to change the fares on the fare boxes? So our East Bay riders got like an extra day of $3.50 instead of $4 fares, but it wasn't worth bringing staff in for overtime for that sort of thing. So, you know, I know the financial people love those nice round dates, but they often fall on a Saturday or a Sunday or a holiday
Yeah.
weekend.
Do you reprint your schedules?
Well, yeah, so the new fares are in our January 14th schedule. Because, you know, we print our schedules, well, 3 times a year now.
But we print them also in July?
So that'll be our discussion. So we'll have an April transit guide and then an August transit guide. So I don't know, because normally there is a June transit guide and it's just very easy to have July 1st fares in it. So that'll be a topic of discussion sometime in the next few weeks.
Interesting. All right.
Maybe we'll have 2 fare pages in our transit guide, one for through June 30th and one starting July 1st. Just the little things that you don't think about when you do these regional coordination efforts.
Well, thank you all, and I'm sure we'll have more discussions about this later. And as we kind of get more information about what MTC is doing. Let's move on to item number 7, the MTC Transit 2050 plus updates. Any updates from the members on the committee?
Yes, Kathleen, do you want me to just take a stab at it since I think you're transitioning?
Transition, that was
if you
one
need
thing
to.
I was gonna
Oh, yeah,
say.
well, sorry to
Yeah.
steal your thunder for that, but so the small operator representation will shift from Kathleen to Emily for Transit 2050 plus, which makes sense. Transit 2050 plus is a lot of time. It was nice to see you at our in-person workshop. So that was your first foray into the experience. Luckily, they're not all 5-hour-long meetings.
Yeah.
5 hours, and at the end of it, you're like, I think we didn't have enough time.
Yeah.
I don't like those meetings.
Yeah.
Because the previous one was like 3 hours in person, and we're like, we needed 2 more hours, and so then we did 5 hours, and probably could have used another hour.
Yeah.
Do they hold them in one location or is it rotate?
It's just at MTC offices.
Uh.
We're on Zoom, but every once in a while, we need to do something in person for the nitty gritty. But anyway, an update on Transit 2050 plus for you guys. The existing conditions analysis was recently completed. We may have said that it was almost done. I think the last time we met, we didn't meet in December, right? So, the needs, gaps, and opportunities analysis is wrapping up. We met in person on December 14th to discuss initial findings. And the project, what do I call it? The PMT is that project management team? I can never remember. The PMT, we're currently discussing that effort, particularly around the methodology to identify these gaps. So we've had that discussion with the MTC/AC Transit staff that's leading it up, and they'll be pulling in the consultant for that. I think the PMT generally feels that some additional effort is needed to really have that gaps analysis be ready for broader consumption. We're very wonky on the PMT, so we kind of understand the nuance, and even we really struggle to be comfortable with a lot of what was presented in the gaps analysis. So I think that'll get pushed out a little bit longer than we originally planned. But with that in mind, we are trying to stay on schedule since MTC has such a tight turnaround for Plan Bay Area. So we'll have our bi-weekly meeting tomorrow via Zoom like usual. And that's where we'll start discussing these quote unquote bucket 3 projects, which are projects that really kind of come out of this new gaps analysis that's being done. Just as a refresher, bucket 1 are original projects from Plan Bay Area 2050. And the quote unquote bucket 2 are new projects that are kind of being pulled in for Plan Bay Area 2050 plus. So this will be the third project bucket for things that really weren't captured. The idea is like things can fall through the cracks. So the third bucket will capture hopefully anything that might have fallen through the cracks. Excuse me. And then other than that, I think the only other thing to note is there's going to start another round of presentations at meetings. So they'll be at the next one is the R&M Council, which is January 22nd. Excuse me. So that'll be the next time.
Is that existing conditions? Is that what they're presenting?
I think so. Andy Metz says that it'll be a very simplified presentation, and I think there will be some discussion of the gaps analysis. But I know the PMT is kind of pushing back on what exactly is actually included in the presentation, since there's still some uncertainty about exactly how that gaps analysis should appear. So we'll see. It sounds like there might be a slide on that. So a little bit beyond the existing conditions, but not too much. Yeah, I think that's all I have on my notes for the past couple months on Transit 2050 plus. Doesn't sound like a lot, but I feel like it's taken a lot of my time.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that was interesting to me was that they did this. I can't keep track of all the words. What do they call it? They created these travel sheds to do the analysis and create the needs and gaps analysis. The travel shed for Sonoma County is almost all of Sonoma County, right? It includes from Petaluma all the way up to north of Healdsburg. And so when they're looking at the needs and gap analysis, they've created these little roadway segments all over the area showing levels of demand of travel, levels of transit service, and travel time, and all this stuff. The segment between Santa Rosa, which they're calling it, right, and the Novato did emerge as being a need, which I think is good for the North Bay. But without any more fine-grained analysis, it's really hard to know, like,
What you do with that?
what you do with that, right? Because we have all these different transit operators, different projects. So, we have a lot of different things in the works in this area. So not to mention this corridor transit evaluation. Anyway, I think Kathleen was asking them some about the capacity for more nuanced analysis using the replica data, but
don't know that that's.
I have formalized that request
you
with
have?
Kara under the auspices of the coordinated transit.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and they promise us they'll do a screen line analysis, but I don't know, when a travel shed is basically the entire urbanized area of the county.
Way beyond the urbanized.
Yeah, actually, yeah,
area.
you're right. It actually goes beyond the urbanized area,
Yeah.
actually. It's, yeah, I don't know, it's, I think, unfortunately, what happened is early in the process, we had this kind of nodes and links discussion in Transit 2050 plus. And really MTC staff and the consultant took these nodes, which we had come to this group in the past and talked about Novato versus Petaluma, for example, but they just kind of unilaterally took the nodes and created travel sheds around them, which I don't think is really what the PMT had expected to happen. And that's how we're in the situation where Sonoma County, almost all of Sonoma County is in a single travel shed, which while San Francisco has, like 10. And it's like, well, yeah, San Francisco has more people, but it's like, 49 square miles, not this. So lessons learned for next time.
I'm gonna still press them to get us the most
Something,
robust,
yes.
more
Yeah.
fine-grained thing that they can get us for this effort.
Right.
We'll see.
Even Solano County has like 3 travel sheds. And I'm like, okay, I understand Napa maybe only having 1 because they're really kind of already just a unified operator with Vine. And there's only a couple linkages outside of their service area, but I don't know. Oh, well.
A lot of kind of similar population. I mean, roughly.
Oh, well, yeah, so there you go.
Yeah.
1/3 of the travel sheds.
Yeah. Thank you. Guess we move on to transit integration updates. Again, this is a general item, which is, topic has become ever more complicated with more various things going on, but I'll just start with a quick update on the local effort with the Sonoma County bus operators. We are still on hold with our integrated transit service plan effort because of some contracting issues, but there's been movement. So we're hoping all that gets resolved soon and get going on that study again. The progress on the Santa Rosa's website has been going, and I think they're still looking at a launch sometime this month.
I haven't heard an
Okay.
update beyond this one,
Yeah,
but I.
so we should find out soon the status, but it seems like it's getting closer. That's exciting.
Sure.
We are also transit app, of course, is available to anybody who downloads it. The Royale service is kind of a additional features that are available. An individual user can subscribe to those additional features, or a transit agency can subscribe to it for all of their users. So this essentially would allow anyone using the 3 bus agency as kind of their like primary transit service to have access to Royale, and that actually gives them the access to it on any transit provider they use, is my understanding. So there's some, like, you can see additional routes, and there's some like gamification that you can use through the app on the user side. I think there's also stops that you can save and routes that you can save if they're your usual routes. And then from the transit agency side, you get to have a dashboard where you can see who's using it and where, who's downloaded the app, and you can also push out notifications that are specific to certain routes. So if there's a delay or cancellation on a particular route, you can actually send it out to the folks that are near that route, looking at that route, or have saved that route as like their primary on their primary trip. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to trying that out and seeing how. Yeah.
Okay. So this is something the 3 bus operators are doing together,
Mhm.
and are the bus operators paying for it, or is it CTA?
Through the transit integration funding that we received from MTC, we'll be covering the pilot for it.
A pilot, okay, how long is it?
We are looking at 1 year. But trying to set up a contract with some options to extend if we can.
Do you know if there are transit agencies in the Bay Area using Transit Royale? Do you have any idea? It's a really interesting product. right?
Yeah.
Because one transit agency makes the investment and then they put their stamp on it and then everyone benefits, right? Their neighbors benefit. I mean, I'm delighted to hear you guys are paying for this. We've been in conversations with them for a long time, but hasn't really been clear like what the benefit is or if it's worth the money. Because right now, like some of the features, like you can see how many people are using it, or you can send messages out through it. We can already do that through Swiftly. There's all these, it's an evolving thing, right? And there's all these different ways of getting at the same product with different price tags from different vendors. But I do think, I don't know how far down the road you are. It sounds like you already have a plan, but it might be worth talking about like a North Bay plan, I mean, does it really make sense? For Marin people to not have it, but some people to have it. Robert mentioned to me that he feels like the features of Royale have become more encompassing, right? Like they've dialed it back, so you are now more in need of getting Royale as the user.
Yeah.
Like he said, he wasn't able to see when the smart train was coming the other day because he didn't have Royale. So, and that's news to me. I haven't experienced that before. So if there's any room for collaboration on that, we'd be interested.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I know SFMTA had a Royale subscription for a period of time and they recently ended it. I mean, they approached us and, because we were one of the earlier adopters of transit app as being our primary means, although, any one of these apps can do it. And we declined because we didn't feel the need, but that was when Royale, launched and it's evolved over time. There's some workarounds as a user to mitigate some of the issues like up until, well, I guess I'm still sort of splitting time, but in San Francisco, for example, even though I'm really close to Balboa Park BART, depending on where exactly my dot is on the map, sometimes I can see the BART arrivals and sometimes they're blocked, even though I'm an 8-minute walk away, just because there's so much Muni service around me that there's like a certain cutoff point, even though I don't take Muni and I take BART. So, and but you're able, at least currently, to move yourself manually a little closer to the spot so you can actually get the information you need. But if they start locking down that sort of utility, I don't know if our agency will be interested in really directing people necessarily to the transit app if there's really no benefit, because our services will be in the same situation when we're in San Francisco and there's just a ton of Muni buses around. And then the Golden Gate Transit stop might be a block further, and then suddenly you won't be able to see the information. So I don't know if Transit's trying to thread that needle right now to see how far they can get before it goes too far, but that's my impression of the process at this point.
Yeah, because we're both actively marketing Transit to our users without having Royale
Right.
previously, so.
Yeah, because we started before there was Royale and it was just like, oh yeah, come on, and I think they were hoping to get enough agencies like us out to then start monetizing the service, which, I'm not surprised, but there's, dozens of apps that do basically the same thing. So survival of the fittest at some point, because we could always just switch to something that comes from our CAD AVL system if we really have to. But in the meantime, thank you, because but it is good for the customer, say if they're in Santa Rosa, is if they do happen to need to take Smart or Golden Gate Transit, they won't just at the county line drop off and no longer have the feature, which is good, because that's even worse than the the alternative.
Right. It's almost like the user just needs to take the bus to Santa Rosa one time, right? Then it upgrades their account. And then it's there.
Is that-
I'm not sure that's how it works.
How do you qualify as a user? How do you indicate you're a user and get qualified?
I'm not sure, it may be based on like where your phone always is, or general, like is most of the time, or it might be based on like you selecting that that's your regular route.
There's probably some sort of timeout feature. I don't know, it's evolved over time, because I'm thinking before the SFMTA thing stopped, you know, I was able to just see the BART times. And it was like, oh, you've been automatically upgraded or whatever. And it's like, well, I never take Muni, I only take BART. But I still got the benefit because geographically I was right in the thick of it. So, but I wouldn't be surprised if over time it changes as they tweak things.
You have to be in a geographical area. So if you're in Sonoma County and you select a trip, then you're upgraded. But if you're in San Francisco returning to Sonoma County.
That's true,
I don't
yeah.
know if that would do the-
Actually, I think you're
What
right.
if it stays with your account? You know,
Yeah, unless it's,
Yeah, when we asked. I
Maybe
know
there's
it
like
stays with
24
your
hours.
account, so if you left and went to San Francisco would like disappear.
Right.
I think it's somehow based, I don't know exactly how the sausage is made, on your general home location. So I don't think you could live in San Francisco, and just say I'm in Petaluma, and you never actually like go up there or something just to get benefit.
gotcha,
But
you'd
don't
probably have to be
have
there.
an account with, as a user with Transit app, you just open it up and it shows you the nearest buses to you.
Yeah, but they have rolled out an account feature that you can have, and I think that's to try to maximize the gamification features.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I got the FAQ. Let me put
Yeah.
you guys up. All right, so here's the deal. I saw that my transit agency is giving its riders a free upgrade to Royale. What does that mean? Okay. Royale is a subscription to the transit app. If you saw a message about a free upgrade in the app, it's your lucky day. That means your local transit agency has partnered with transit to provide your subscription, blah, blah, blah. How they do that is, if you're a frequent rider, you should be granted Royale automatically. A message will pop up to inform you of your new status. So I think there is this element, as you, I think, were saying, Dana, that the app will see that you're using certain services that are, you know, within the area, the
Yeah.
agencies that have subscribed. So what I haven't scrolled down to is what if I don't get that pop-up? How can I get become eligible? I don't know.
Yeah, you may need to open that app and look at routes, right? And
Yeah, I don't know if it's based on the
Yeah.
ones it shows you most often, because I think it shows you these days what the three most recent nearby ones. Or if it's based on the ones you click on the most or something along those lines. What does it show you, the three most close routes?
Yeah, it does populate the list based on what's closest
Right.
at the route level, regardless of direction. You can scroll left to right to change direction. I don't know if it's the top 3 or top 5. It might depend on transit density as well.
There's still a lot of questions.
Yes.
You're a new rider,
There's always-
like, what
Yeah.
happens if you're a brand new rider and you want to get on the Royale and start planning trip? I don't know. So there's.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Always.
Always more
But yeah, we can look into those and also look into what. You know, what this might be for a greater regional.
Because I know BART has an app, and there was a push, I want to say right before the pandemic, to try to get other operators to join in on the fun. And we had transit at the time, and Royale hadn't rolled out yet, so we said thanks, but no thanks.
Well, we've all
But-
been migrating to transit partially because, you know, our regional partners are, you know, so yeah.
Right. Yeah, it could have been a missed opportunity.
And you say migrating, you mean what you're pushing out to your
Yeah,
riders?
migrating in the sense of like,
What
instead
can you
of,
communicate with?
yeah,
Yeah.
instead of promoting our CAT ABL based app, right? Our GMB app, we're promoting transit partially
Yeah.
because, you know, we want all to be consistent among the bus operators, but also with the regional providers. So it's kind of an
Yeah.
iterative cycle we're in.
In terms of signage, in terms of on the website, if you have language that says like, so it's always the official app of the agency, all those things.
Yeah, it's tough even, you know, more in the urban core with BART directing people to their app. AC Transit had made the decision to direct people to Google Maps because they have the more robust GTFS feed and they focus their customers there. So it's a real mishmash right now.
Maybe Google Maps and stuff. We have QR codes on our posters to tell people to use that rather than. Because before we had QR codes for all the individual transit websites, and I was like, take those off, it's a nightmare. So now we just do Google Maps and the transit app.
So, but
That's
does,
the whole point of GTFS.
Right.
does your Google Maps feed include the actual real-time data? Oh, it does, okay. Yeah, I think ours might, but I know AC Transit was one of the first ones to say. no to all these apps. Let's just get this set up first. And maybe that turned out to be a more strategic thing. I don't know until Google Maps decides to figure out how to monetize that as well.
That's where everyone else is pulling from, right? All the other apps. Nothing. No, they're pulling from GTFS.
Yeah, they pull straight from GTFS. And they all have their own algorithms that kind of tweak how the data is presented. And I know one of the things that motivated Golden Gate Transit to not use more of our just direct CAD AVL system is it said, oh, here's your 2 time points, it's 20 miles between them. Let's just divide the travel time by 20. And it's like, well, but 5 of those miles are on San Francisco city streets, 15 of those miles are on the freeway. You can't just divide, by 20 and call it a day. And so some apps like Transit do a better job of actually realizing that. So.
Right, does anybody want to bring up any of the many other regional or state integration efforts?
The transfer plan kickoff was in December. So that's the transit operator led regional effort at near term operational improvements. And then it's been a couple months since we met. So I think since our last meeting, Caltrain's had its kickoff where it's 20, I don't know, it's equivalent to a 2050 transit plan. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but we'll see. Marin County is doing one as well at the same time. So it'll be interesting to see if these half dozen different studies all end up with the same results or not.
Another study to look at us.
Yeah.
Seriously. There is a lot, so there's a lot of different regional efforts going on. And I did want to pose the question of whether we want to be more coordinated about, so there's, at first, a lot of them were just whoever wants to participate, participates. The transit agencies are all invited, some subset of them by some organic process decide to participate in a PMT and then, that's the PMT. So, and some of the other ones have just been whoever wants to participate and a PMT has never been formalized. So, but as it's evolved, a few of the PMTs have formalized and we've sort of talked about who's our rep to those. So you're the rep to Transit 2050 Plus. That was sort of the first one that came about. Mapping and wayfinding, I think Matt stepped up, largely because Santa Rosa is one of the pilots.
Yeah.
And you're like the backup, maybe?
Well, so there are 4 different committees for mapping and wayfinding.
Mhm.
And the new.
They're not committees. They're meetings.
They're like
Or
groups,
like
they're like subgroups. I don't know.
Subgroups or whatever.
They're groups.
They're groups.
There's like
Yeah.
a user group, there's a technical advisory
Yeah.
committee, there is some other thing that sounds like technical advisory committee, and then there is something else.
Yeah, I think it's a
Marketing.
planning and policy.
Okay, there's a
and
bunch, and
marketing,
so
yeah.
I tried to, for example, at Smart, I tried to sort of split them up, right, and get marketing people to go to them. But they have the same materials at all the meetings.
Mm.
And
Do
because
they?
I'm on all the mailing lists and just filled up my calendar and I'm just constantly deleting them. Yes, there's 4 different committees.
Well,
The
but I
one
thought
that
they were-
Matt's on is the new one, that's the 4th one.
My-
other ones.
So
It's
the,
a
My
lot,
understanding,
yeah.
so the
It's a lot.
new one is like, my understanding is more of
More of
a.
a TAC.
More of a
TAC,
TAC.
yeah.
my understanding was that the effort at the beginning, they basically identified 3 streams of work. Like
Right.
one was branding, one was mapping, and one was something else. I didn't track. There were 3
Yeah,
streams of work.
That's right.
And those streams of work had periodic meetings that were like quarterly, each one, but there's 3 of them, so they probably felt more frequent, but like, and again, I haven't gone to any of them. This is one that I did, but then those streams of work, and the reason they created this 4th one is because they needed some more consistent, focused effort from a group, because also there's a huge invite list. Those are not
Yeah.
PMT like groups. It's everyone is invited.
Right.
Anyone who opted in at the beginning is invited.
Right.
It
They
tends
asked
to be a
for
big group.
names. Yeah.
And so the reason they created this 4th meeting was to have a more consistent, like a PMT, that provides more ongoing consistent direction on all 3 of those streams of work. I don't know if they will eventually phase out those other streams of work or if those are going to continue as sort of a open-ended, like open door, anyone can come and get an update on these 3 streams of work. but I think the PMT like one is the newest one. That functions like the PMTs for all the other efforts. And this is the only one that took that structure where there's like multiple streams of work and multiple meetings for each stream of work.
I would say the 3 streams of work, I don't know, they haven't really met very often.
She
in
said,
my
they told me no
experience.
more than quarterly.
Okay, I don't even remember the last time I went to a planning and policy stream.
That's right, there's one called planning policy,
Yeah.
and there's one called operation.
One, which
Yeah.
our maintenance director opted out of and said, why am I even here? So I kind of had to take that one on. And I split it with our marketing person who does the other stream, which is the branding and whatever it's called. And we've decided that she would then be the one on the TAC because it didn't make sense to spread it around, and the TAC seems to be the one that's actually going to be meeting regularly. I'll see her on Friday because we'll be in the office together, but I'll talk to her about this because at the TAC, I think it might be worth discussing whether these 3 streams really need to exist in addition to a TAC at this point, because it's
Yeah.
regional mapping and wayfinding projects always been a real beast. Mel at our agency, Melanie and I have been involved in it since, I don't know, 2017 or whatever, when it originally kicked off. We've been at workshops at Stanford and whatever else over the years. And it's almost like, we joke about having all these regional meetings, but regional mapping and wayfinding is almost its own set of that number of meetings just for one project, where I feel like we go in and we just get bulldozed by the consultant anyway. So, sorry.
Yeah, and it
Off the
doesn't be a core information that's presented at all 3 meetings, and then a little bit of specific information about that topic, so.
Yeah, which at some point it's like, well,
Yeah.
just delegate it instead.
Hopefully they get rid of, you're right, there's 4. Planning and policy, operations and maintenance, user experience, and branding. Were the original 4, and now they have a PMT. Hopefully that PMT will now subsume all those others and they can go away. So they don't have 5 lines on this regional coordination meeting. So they have more real estate on this meeting list than they're allowed.
Yeah.
But I brought this up because, so that one we've sort of designated, Matt, and you're like the backup. You were this, or the second. I can't remember. Are you going to all of them or are you
I mean, I'm
Matt's
the
backup?
backup for the 4th committee, but I am on all the other groups.
First
And
part.
and I wanted to talk about the Santa Rosa thing too. I mean, it's a big project. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so there's that one. And then there's various other, I was just wondering if we want to sort of take that regional list and say like, oh, I remember the one that came up recently is the transit priority policy. So they have this transit priority effort that's really been about projects and evaluating those projects, and they'll eventually distribute money. So part of it is having a collective understanding of all the transit priority efforts in the region. And then they're gonna say which ones get funded sometime this spring, I think. But then they've created a new committee to talk about the policy. And Golden Gate has volunteered to be on it. Do you know who at Golden Gate? Dennis said-
Tentatively, it's gonna be Ron. And my understanding from Dennis was that he's supposed to represent all of the Marin and Sonoma interests in that
Yeah.
role, and not just Golden Gate.
Yeah, so at the last GM coordination meeting, basically they said like, can we just have one person go and report back to this group? Transit priority is a priority for all of our agencies.
Yep.
And really represent the group and then report back to the group, so.
Yeah, we'll nail down officially if it's Ron, like Ron, Emily and Emily Del Ross,
Yeah.
not this Emily. And I have sort of, the 3 of us have been fielding this transit priority thing, but I think
Yeah.
we're gonna have Ron just actually be the one.
Yeah,
Yeah, since Emily did bus aid and I've done some periphery stuff on it, but it's a lot of staff time.
yeah,
And it's just, especially for transit priority, I don't know. If one person from the North Bay is probably enough, because I would be surprised if there's a lot of like Petaluma or Santa Rosa specific type things. Like in a large enough quantity to then pull in another person from the North Bay. I think Ron should probably be able to field it for everyone. And, but obviously we're open to changes.
Yeah.
Once we're in, like regional mapping and wayfinding, when you're in it and you realize, oh, wow, what have we gotten ourselves into?
Yeah.
But hopefully this one's nice and clean. We'll find out.
The first mapping and wayfinding thing I've read in a very long time was the email Matt sent out, because I was like, oh, this is my representative who's gonna like distill this information to what I actually
Yeah.
should pay attention to, and I actually looked at his attachments and things, so model wise, I do think it works where you can start to pay attention to like your rep for that effort, not all the many emails. They distill all the many emails into one that's like, okay, pay attention to this.
Yeah.
So for RNet, the regional network management, that's us, and I don't think. And there's a few updates I could give on that. But, and I don't know what, I mean, I could go through that list, but I think, do you guys like the idea of trying to attach some names of sort of the primary rep? And maybe that would mean you wouldn't have to go to all of the meetings, I don't know.
Maybe, we could go through the list at our next T-TAC meeting.
Yeah,
That'd be great. Yeah.
then I can actually have it somewhere other than my phone.
Yeah, and thank you so much. I mean, I assume that you put this whole rest.
I started with a list someone else created and got input from a lot of people. I've been like the holder of it, but it's been a collaborative effort for sure.
Yeah, you should walk around like a laminated copy and like the.
Yeah. I hope it's not laminated, because I hope eventually some, maps and wayfinding doesn't have 5 rows and I can keep editing it.
Are all the Clipper meetings on that list? I can't remember.
Oh, God.
They are.
Oh.
Can we talk about
That would be great because that would be a huge help.
Every Tuesday before.
Yeah.
Wait,
There's a
all
Clipper
this-
meeting every Tuesday. at
Maybe
4.
it's every third Tuesday or something.
There's Clipper staff liaison meeting, it is on here, and Clipper customer service education and distribution, CESD, which happens quarterly. Clipper liaison is monthly.
Maybe that's.
And then there's a fair policy, fair program staff working group, so they did combine
Yeah.
Clipper Start, Bay Pass, and the regional
Which is
transfer into
good.
one, which was good. I think those are the 3 fair related meetings that I have on there.
There's also a monthly Clipper 2.0
I've got
status meeting.
C2 monthly program meeting,
Yeah.
Tuesday at 10.
Yeah, I don't have that one on here.
So that's another
I
one.
did not know about that.
You need a
Yeah.
whole fair program section of your spreadsheet, okay? 'Cause then there's all the fair
It's
stuff
only,
too.
it's real estate is limited to 4 rows, this is it. No more adding after this 4th row was added.
You're gonna go back to the MTC and be like, just kidding, there's 50 meetings a month.
Yeah, C2, maybe you can send me the details of
Okay.
that so I can
I'll
add it.
send you this one, but there's a lot more.
Yeah, that would be helpful because, we've had to start tracking this internally as the smallest of the big 7.
Yeah.
We're generally expected to go to all of them and.
Is a
it's-
C2 meeting just for large operators? Cause
No, I think the small operators are there as well, because I feel like I usually see, like a Union City Transit or County Connection.
they
show
give
as
so
well.
many C2 updates at the Clipper staff liaison meetings. It's like
I-
95%
Probably a
of what they're
duplicate.
presenting.
It could be, but I only go to the C2 meeting. Somebody else at our agency goes to the other one, and we're probably hearing the same thing reinterpreted. Who knows?
Huh, yeah, I've never heard of the C2.
It's maybe between this, Clipper and regional mapping and wayfinding are two very large efforts. But I'll pull together our notes. Ron is, with the help of Amy Fry, who's our capital and grants director. We've started basically the same type of thing that you have, Kathleen. So I think maybe at the next meeting, you can bring your notes, I can bring my notes. We can see if we can get a comprehensive list.
And just write off like who's gonna be the main point of contact.
Right.
Because Transit 2050 Plus has been pretty good about sending out consolidated updates
Yeah.
as well. Andy prepares.
Yeah,
them,
and
which
he's
is
been,
nice.
good with that.
While we're talking about transit integration, I will say, I think since the last meeting of this in November.
Yes.
So the RNM kicked off. The Regional Network Management Council has had 2 meetings now. I guess maybe it did meet before, no, I think anyway, I can't remember. But it's kicked off. The 3rd meeting is in January, on January 22nd. Nancy is the rep. They are gonna be talking about things like key performance indicators soon. I do have a draft list. And my main message thus far has been, make sure that they are not too onerous to collect, because the small operators, getting all the data together is a big effort. We don't have like a data team that we can just, but as I get my head around what those are actually being proposed as, well, if anyone would like to review them, I'm happy to just forward you the document. But, I can also try and distill it and figure out what it's saying. And then would it be helpful to see them?
Yeah.
Yes.
There's some tricky ones like safety. that are definitely a goal, but hard to figure out how to measure ongoing progress for. Like, what is the metric you look at, and then how do you actually make sure the progress goes in the right direction, even if you're doing all the right things? So, yeah. And then
So MTC is thinking rather than just like revive TSP, that they'll do a whole new set of KPIs. Because TSP was all financially based KPIs, so it sounds like they want,
Transit Sustainability Project.
yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds like they want KPIs that are new and fresh.
They want some KPIs to measure whether the regional network management structure is working, both. Is it working to make the transit experience better throughout the Bay Area? And is it working as a structure?
Okay,
You know, did we set it up right? Is the structure working?
that makes sense.
And so it's sort of a meta version, meta set of KPIs about itself, and then a
Okay.
set about, but yes, it's looking more focused on rider experience than financials.
Okay.
I don't actually know if I can't remember if there is a financial one, but it's really rider experience focused.
Okay.
I think the biggest issue is there's also a lot of a discussion of accountability and metrics and how we track progress for all these at the state level, around all the measures and funding and all of that. And so making sure there is not multiple sets of KPIs that are different that we're tracking for all these different efforts, especially for the small operators. That's definitely actively being discussed. I don't know that we have resolved it yet. And there's some things like the measure to enable them.
The enabling.
The enabling legislation to enable the measure.
Yeah, yeah.
Accountability is a big topic, and so how those all, there could be new. Anyway. There was one other effort. Well, also, the coordinated Marin Sonoma service planning is ongoing. We have our next meeting the end of this month. The GMs met again the 5th. We were sorry you couldn't come. And there's also something called Hubs of the Future. Have you tracked that at all?
Are we the MTC one or the Caltrans one?
The MTC one.
Our manager of traffic engineering and transit services.
But it is the thing they're talking about. It
Does
doesn't
exist. Well, and seriously, there is a parallel Caltrans one going on at the same time.
Yeah.
So there are
The mobility hub.
two hubs related projects, efforts going on, and we're aware of both of them. We've assigned somebody at our agency. Whether or not he gets emails or meetings out of either one of those efforts, I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's the MTC hubs of the future, and then the Caltrans mobility hubs. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And both of those are going on simultaneously as well. So this is your 53rd and 54th entry
Yeah, on the list.
on the list.
Who runs Hubs of the Future?
So.
It's MTC, but I don't know.
Andy has actually been the one pulling the information together, Andy Metz, because it's
Okay.
loosely related to the transfer plan and Transit 2050 plus. I think it's sort of sprung out of discussions of that. But also out of discussions of I think the idea of it is that we are doing a lot. How do we communicate that effort better? And so at a hub level, you could look, like I can speak most knowledgeably about San Rafael Transit Center. The transit center is being redesigned. There's transit priority projects surrounding the transit center feeding into it. There's, city projects that are improving the pedestrian experience. How do you bring all that together and say, look, there are all these things happening. They tend to be kind of in their own silos. How do we look at them all together? And hubs seemed like the right way to look at that. So it's more, rather than a new effort, it's a way of illustrating information from what I can tell. It could be a gaps identification process also, where you say like, each of these hubs has all these things going for it, but isn't addressing this piece of the picture that we know is important for riders. So I think it is targeted more towards, how do we illustrate progress to riders in a way that is not, this list of meetings that isn't, very rider focused. So I can say I will try and actually understand what it is. And I can report back at the other meeting. It's been on my list anyway. And to see which, I think the only hubs that would be in, like, probably the most likely hubs would be Santa Rosa. They're looking at one per county, Santa Rosa. I'm not sure if it would be the whole area, the smart, to the
Should be.
It should be that
Yeah.
whole area, and then the the San Rafael Transit Center. I don't think it would be, I think that would probably be the one rather than Larkspur, or it's one of the other ones, Marin County ones.
Yeah, that would make sense because the Caltrans one has San Rafael. Well,
Yeah.
not that the two need to match up, but
But yeah, no, I think it
it
would
should.
be better, yeah.
Okay, I wanted to mention a couple things about wayfinding.
Yeah.
Talking.
That's fine.
One of the things that went out around wayfinding, and I didn't give it much scrutiny, because it doesn't affect us as much, but it's the way that the bus blades are differentiated by type of service in the new schematic. And I don't know if you guys looked at it, but you know, the concern, that I heard was that it's really sort of designing for agencies with very frequent service and working backwards in terms of differentiation. And then we just don't have that in the North Bay, right? And so it's just going to, from a graphic aesthetic perspective, right, just going to leave us with all the signs sort of looking the same without that communication detail. So I just want to mention that for
Yeah,
having time to review it and yeah.
I've heard that. What is the, should we submit a comment
Yeah.
saying that? Should we
Well,
all submit comments
Comments
saying
were
that?
last week and Robert said he voiced comments, but I didn't see any in the spreadsheet from anyone. So I don't know. I'm gonna check on that. It seemed like a really valid point to me.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that was brought up in the meeting, just about like where that cutoff is for frequent
Mhm.
service. Is it like under 10-minute service or is it 15-minute
Yeah.
service? And you know, that those nuances make a much bigger difference up
Yeah.
here, right?
And like, let's say we only had 15, 30, 45-minute service, right? Or,
Or
let's
even
say-
30,
or
45, which would
even
be a
30,
huge part of the
45,
region.
60.
Yeah.
Right? Like, let's say we weren't working backwards from uni. What would be the best way to communicate that to our riders? And is there some way to have like a middle ground with the MTC?
Well, and does it mean that the sign, like, most of it is blank and we just have a little bit of information at the bottom? That's the part that I didn't understand, but I just skimmed it.
I guess just the colors.
Yeah, he was the
Colors.
color was.
Yeah.
I think there was, one of the comments we had was, there was some iteration where it was just route numbers and then the logos were just in a little strip in the bottom. Is that, I think that's what you're talking about, right? Because we pushed back on that because in any one place, the buses look completely different unless we're doing unified branding. And I think the GMs have already told MTC thanks, but no thanks. So who's to say it's a Marin Transit bus or a Golden Gate Transit bus that shows up? The sign, some of those mock-ups just were like, okay, well, it's this route or that route. And not all agencies have head signs on their buses that work or even physically there. So how is a customer even supposed to know what bus to look for that's approaching the stop when there's more than one route there? So that was an issue. Also, I know we had an issue with the size of the signs being quite large, like significantly larger than the largest signs that we currently have out in the field. And that might be fine for transit centers, but once you get onto the street, it's a huge problem.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
and I don't know, I feel like I skimmed some Excel files that I got amongst all of the emails, and I don't remember seeing any of these comments referenced in there, even though I know that they were provided. So I'm not really sure what's going on there.
I can look back and see. I know Robert was gonna submit
Yeah,
something.
we might want to look at it.
Okay.
Capacity. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was just the San Rafael Santa Rosa prototype site is still moving forward.
Yeah.
I talked to Gordon a few days ago and they are MTC is going to present at our board meeting in March. Yay. So they can answer all the questions that everyone has.
That's great.
So I don't know if you also want to get them to
Yeah.
present. I was so happy to hear that was a possibility and I didn't do it myself.
Yeah,
You said
that would
this
be
meeting in
awesome.
March?
Not this meeting, our board meeting, Smart's
Yeah.
board meeting. But because we and Santa Rosa are the prototype site for this wayfinding, I think it will be a good sort of introduction to the North Bay on what is going on. in this project.
Because they're doing the Santa Rosa Transit Mall, right? And what's the smart location?
Downtown. So it's-
Railroad Square?
Yeah,
Oh, so they're
And kind of some breadcrumbs in between,
yeah.
minimal.
through the mall?
No, tracking them all, they nixed through them all. But just to add on to that, so I was actually spending some time on this over the holidays, because I finally had time to like think about it. So one thing I want to do, we have a set of mock-ups for the transit mall of what the signs may, roughly what they'll look like. It sounds like the details are still being worked out with all these committees, but would like to share that with Sonoma County and Golden Gate, just so you guys can get a sense of what's being proposed for the prototype signage, because it will encompass your agencies as well. And then the timing I'm still confused on, because, you know, we're moving out of the transit mall. And this was another update I was gonna give. We have to move out of the transit mall for about 45 days, end of May, early June. We'll be coordinating with the services in the transit mall, relocating over to First Street like we did before, so we can rebuild the roadbed. So the original plan was for the prototypes to go in ahead of that. But I don't think that's gonna work at this point, so it may have to be after, but in any case. We're waiting for MTC, they need to go to Regional Network Management Council or wherever else they need to go internally to kind of. Show off this prototype product, and then we're gonna need to go to our design review board and cultural heritage board. Because we're always for the historic district, so we're gonna looking to do that in February. And then council, I will follow up with board on having them come to council, because I was planning to do that and. It'd be great if they wanted to. So, awesome.
Well, it'd be interesting to know what level of input they're willing to receive at this time, because the whole point of the prototype, right, is
Yeah.
like a year-long
It's a pilot, right?
process. So.
Right, well, I mean, the two stops in Santa Rosa, I think are informative, because it is a very short-term pilot, and it's a city-sponsored project, it's we don't need to pull permits or anything like that, so it's a little bit of a lighter touch, but you know, ideally, they're collecting the feedback even starting then, right?
Right.
Because there will be feedback right out of the gate from all of these groups about what they might consider in the future, like having it be more intermodal, or, you know, in terms of active transportation, all these sorts of things are gonna come up. But my sense is that, like, we pushed back on a couple of things and they really didn't want to make changes.
Yeah.
Right, so I don't
That's
know
what
what your
I'm feeling
experience
as
is.
well.
Yes, so, but you know, they're gonna be up for like, what, 2 months, 3 months?
Oh, a lot longer than that, I think.
Well,
No?
I don't know.
Okay.
See, I mean, what they had originally said was maybe it's because they were anticipating we'd be moving out of the transit mall, so that they're going to be up in the transit mall for 2 or 3 months. But,
I thought it was at least 6 months.
okay,
Okay.
6 months.
But we don't know. Turns out.
Yeah.
I do think,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do think
yeah.
understanding, like the whole point of a pilot is that you get feedback from people and understand how it's working. And I think it would be really useful to know what the feedback mechanism is.
Yeah.
And then how that feedback, the only reason to pilot something is because you're open to making changes before rolling it out in a broader way.
Right, well, and I know that they have a plan, and again, I don't think we have that plan, but I know that they're gonna be doing intercepts with
Okay.
riders, and they're planning to be on the ground interacting with actual users, getting feedback on the signage and the wayfinding, and so I know that's built into the process, I just don't have any details, so there is definitely a thought
Yeah.
process. around that.
And you know, we're gonna be fielding input as well.
Oh,
and we're
100%,
gonna need to know
yeah.
how to funnel that into
Yeah.
the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So for all the signs for the pilot, they're gonna be like low cost metal static type signs?
They're putting like decals over our existing, not, okay, there's gonna do some new bus blades and stuff, but for like our big signs in the transit mall, they're just gonna decal over them. And then we can just take them off when we're done, or
No.
decide we like them and manufacture them or fabricate them to replace what we have, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it depends on the setting, but yeah, like at our bus stops that are part of the, you know, between the smart transit mall area, there will be, you know, like new bus blades that have to be installed, and probably there might be a pole or two that has to be sunk, so but they're trying to keep it real light touch.
Yeah,
I
so
anticipate this happening in the fall after the transit.
Well, that's the only thing I can think of that would really work, and we're trying to get in and out and back into the transit mall by the time school starts in the fall, like in August. So, that's our goal on the construction side, so then presumably.
You're resurfacing?
Yeah, well, we're digging up the whole thing and
when's it
rebuilding.
starting?
Late May, early June. Going out to bid like right now, so.
Yeah, so they couldn't put them in May, say before, because of the endpoint.
I mean, they
They
could,
could.
there's no one would see them, no one would be there. I mean, honestly, while we're out of there is a good time for the installation to occur,
Yeah.
like, it's actually like to open back up with the new signage in place is kind
Make
of.
a lot of sense.
That makes sense.
You know, would be fine. And it could be part of the reopening. It's like, oh, and by the way, we're piloting these new signs, like, welcome back, what do you think? So I think there's an opportunity there. I just haven't quite connected with the board around the timing, so. Anyway, that was a much longer update than I meant to have, but I definitely will make sure that you guys get what I have, just so you can get a sense of what's being proposed.
Well, the transit model, so that's gonna close in May or June,
Late May, so here's ideally, we would wait till your school to get out,
okay?
move the transit mall, relocate, get back in before school opens. They need about 45 days, so it's tight. So that's the plan right now. I'm just saying, or late May, because I haven't yet figured out when certain functions will have to move, like we have to figure out where the kiosk is gonna go, like where's the flipper tote gonna be, like what do we do about restrooms, like, so there's all these pieces that may happen a little sooner, just to get it done.
Are they doing it all asphalt and are you incorporating any charging?
No, we're not incorporating, we talked about it, we're not incorporating any charging at this time.
Okay.
But.
All asphalt though?
Well, it's concrete,
Oh, it's all concrete.
yeah, it's like 2 feet of concrete, it's crazy.
Oh,
Buses are heavy.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, we haven't done this in like 30 years, so it lasts for a long time, but it's like, it's definitely needing it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, thank you, SCTA, for helping us get a big chunk of the money, which is gonna cover less and less of it now. The way things have gone, but it's still a lot of money we don't have to come up with, which is great, so.
And the pilot is officially part of the regional mapping and wayfinding project, right?
What is, I'm sorry?
The
Oh,
pilot
yeah,
is
yeah.
officially,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's with El Cerrito.
yeah, along with Del Norte, yeah. Yeah, yeah, I'll talk to our regional mapping and wayfinding tech member. Because I haven't heard updates, because we go to both, and I haven't heard updates on either location for a while. I know the construction part is done though, so they can just kind of go in whenever, so maybe they lead with that and then this follows, depending.
We'll find out, keep you posted.
So we're almost at 11:30. Folks want to stick around for a quick round of updates or? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Do you want to start out then?
Yeah. Okay. Happening here, post holidays. We are starting free fares for youth and seniors on April 1st. Big deal. Mhm.
For like 2 years? A year-
Well, we took
little
it through
bit,
the
yeah.
end of the
That's
fiscal
right,
year,
that's right.
so it's sort of a year and a quarter.
A year and a quarter.
Yeah.
It is for use only or
Youth and
youth and senior?
Yeah, big deal. So we're trying to figure out the logistics around that. What other updates I have? Ridership's been very strong, still exceeding pre-pandemic. I think that's all I got. Yeah, I'm passing.
Okay, I'll just keep it real quick. I already did a couple of my updates about the road bed, more to come on that for the operators in the transit hall as well as the prototype site. Anyone is interested, we have the Gillig electric bus. It's gonna be on site Wednesday next week. I think all day, but I can get the exact time frame. Aligning with their safety meeting. So if any of the other agencies wanna drop by, now you guys already have some Gillig electric buses.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Will it be in Stony Point location?
yeah, it'll be at our yard there.
Okay.
So, yeah, it'll be around all day and we'll be letting folks test it out and the tires and stuff. So, more than welcome to join us and I'll send more information. And then, the only thing I wanted to bring up, and this is maybe gonna be more under updates, but since we're doing a lightning round. Transit Equity Day last year, February 4th, we did, a fare free day and some promotion around the day, working with NAACP of Sonoma County. They've reached back out to us. They're interested in partnering again. And so, wanted to put it out there in the larger meeting. We can also follow up in our bus operator integration meeting, but that's coming up real quick. But I think there are some nice materials from last year that we could either reuse or build on. given the short time frame we have, but we probably need to figure out real quickly if we want to repeat the Fair Free Day, and do that, and, then be able to get back to the Lacey, so put it out there. Think about it, we'll talk. Great.
February 4th?
February 4th,
Oh.
it's coming right up,
Yes.
it's the Sunday,
This is,
for what it's worth.
oh, it's Sunday?
Yeah,
That makes it easier.
yeah, that's,
Our construction started, back in December on our 19 post, electric bus charging facility, should be done in June or July. We did go with the option for the natural gas generators, so we can fuel, we have new power,
oh, that's cool.
see how all that works. We should get 3 35-foot BYD buses the end of the month. I'm going down there tomorrow to hopefully see them. Where they ship them up. We've ordered 4 new pedalways, should be here by the end of this fiscal year. The Transit, we're actually trying to get out of the Proterra agreement for 10 buses, and us and the city on our list that didn't make the sale yesterday, but we haven't quite got out of it yet. We're looking at other options. Let's see, we're gonna order 2 more BYD 35-foot buses. We'll see in 2026. And our 10 bus order may go to 13 if we work it right. So got a lot going on bus wise this Sunday. We have some new schedules, some new routes or some existing routes. And this is the year we have our triennial review. So busy putting all that stuff together.
Oh, yeah, us too.
Us three.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
That's 4.
There we go.
February 29th is your deadline.
That means that we must be more going next year, so.
Wait a minute, the state one or the FTA one? We're doing state this
FTA.
year. Oh, FTA is next year for
FTA,
us.
yeah.
Okay.
That's like that.
All right, for Petaluma, we are running fare free on weekends through kind of the second half of November, all the way through the end of the year. So that was successful. We were part of a multi-agency toy drive, like a Step a Bus event. I know Smart and several others were part of that event too. And I think that was really successful, especially for the first year. It was tense.
Oh, it was great. We had Santa on there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
In terms of our ridership for November 2023, fixed route was up 50% from the year prior. We're now at 85% of pre-COVID ridership on fixed route, 82% on paratransit ridership for pre-COVID, so it's come along well, which is nice. Doing a lot of work on our micro transit pilot, still plan to launch by June of next year. Also working on the fare free project, like I was mentioning, also be rolled out by June of next year.
You mean this year?
June of this
June, oh yeah, you're right.
year.
June of this year, wow. Yeah, so forget.
So you're doing free weekends starting now, and then you're doing fully fare free starting in June?
We did freeway weekends from approximately middle of November through the end of the year for kind of the holidays, working with the downtown
Oh.
areas, so that's now over.
Wow.
As of now, we have the K through 12, along with San Rosa, Sonoma County, our veteran program. Those are our free ones at the moment. For zero emission buses going to council on the 22nd for our purchase of our first electric buses, it would be 4 new flyer buses. And then same night as our charge point chargers, so working on those, and then our yard improvements, about 50% design level, so coming along pretty well. We basically completed the rollout of GMB, our CAD, computer aided dispatch system, replacing a veil. And so that's pretty much complete, minus a few tweaks. We're doing the GTFS feed to make sure that's all like fully dialed in. But overall, that's gone relatively smoothly. And I think it's fine for us.
Me?
Yeah.
That's it.
Everyone's looking everywhere else. We are on the free fare front, we are still thinking about doing free summer use, but sticking to summer just because we do have some potential for serious overcrowding on some of our school serving routes. But it's been an active topic of conversation at our board. We are wrapping up our fare study, taking final recommendations next month. And from a technology side, we are not planning on replacing our GFI fare boxes. We're gonna go to cash drop boxes, but probably not until let GFI really run its course through probably 2025. And then procure just cash drop boxes. We're hoping by that point, our Clipper percentage has gotten up quite a bit with Clipper 2, so there'll be like a year overlap between GFI and Clipper so that we can sort of gauge how that goes and, you know, yeah, it'll help us make some of the fair product decisions, like cash transfer is gonna be one of the stickiest ones. Of, you know, if the Clipper percentage is still, even if it's at 50%. And we have half of our riders still paying with some sort of, well, it wouldn't be half, hopefully, it's because a bunch of them are flash passes. Anyway, there's a lot of fair product transition work we're gonna have to do, but it gives us a little bit of overlap, so we have some flexibility in how we roll out some of the fair product changes. We are gonna be moving to APCs for passenger counting. So we're excited about that. We're currently assessing our existing APCs and to see whether we wanna procure some new ones, replace some of the ones we have. Get some of the like software to do better analysis of the data so that the data is more usable on the back end. We were at 96% of pre-COVID ridership for the last month. I guess the last month we're tracking is November. So that's pretty exciting to see. It looks like our service changes that we made last June, which was pretty substantive. It was like half of our routes. Our riders seem to have gotten the hang of it because our ridership percentage increase has gone up after that. So and we haven't heard any major complaints or anything. We've also been making a lot of changes to our complimentary paratransit program. So our Catch a Ride program, which is a taxi voucher program. And so there's been a lot of movement on that front. And we're continuing to kind of tweak some of those programs. And I think that's my fast and furious updates.
One thing I've got to mention, I think all the agencies are converting from 3-year to 5-year eligibility on paratransits.
Yeah.
People weren't aware of that. That's not wrong. And then I was curious with your.
I think it's
fare box.
regionally,
Yeah, region.
I don't know if we can call it mandate, but that's a regional decision, right? Yeah.
With your fare boxes, are you doing all the buses at once to go over the manual ones, or is it through attrition? Is you like order new ones?
We have not made that decision yet. We're pretty sure we can, but I think because I think it will be all at once. I think we'll just procure the full fleet and replace the full fleet.
Okay.
What date triggers that of like when we start having enough issues with the GFI fare boxes that we decide or whether we just choose a date and say, okay, it's time to pull the plug and make the transition, but it's still a ways off.
So you won't have any GFI data, you're all going to passenger counters?
So we'll have APCs, and then the plan is to have the rider segment information through the CAD AVL tablet. So right now, the drivers are still, you know, some of the data we get direct through GFI, but you know, if someone pays $1, they still have to mark, is it a senior or is it a youth? So the drivers are still doing a lot of tallying on the GFI boxes. The plan is to just transfer that tally responsibility over to the manual unit we have through the CAD AVL provider. And that's where they'll do the rider segment tallying.
So your drop box, it won't separate the dollar bills from the coin in.
It's just gonna be all dumped in.
Yeah.
That's what Petaluma does.
Yeah, if you ever want to come down to see the T-TAC way, yeah, we've got diamond fare boxes, visual verification.
Yeah.
So you drop in the money, driver eyeballs it, if it's good, it's got a little
Great.
letter that drops.
Yep.
Towards very scientific.
Yeah. But they're also, you know, we're looking at like 1.8 to $2 million to replace GFI. And these are gonna be more like 250,000 for the whole fleet. So it's, you know, it's orders of magnitude different. And given that our board has discussed free fares a lot, like the appetite for spending $2 million on new fare boxes was low, especially given that we've invested a huge amount of money and effort in this Clipper system. So, and a lot of the GFI capabilities duplicate stuff that we would just not enable. So it just felt like there wasn't a reason to pay for another really sophisticated fare collection mechanism on the bus.
Yeah, we kind of felt the same way. If it was many years ago, it would have been great to have digital fare boxes, but we were so far along. We just always thought we'd rather put the efforts in like Flipper and apps and things like that.
Yeah.
Given where we are.
Yeah.
It's not just upfront costs, it's all the ongoing maintenance and a ton of staff time.
Yeah.
Maintain them and keep them in good working order too.
Yeah.
If you can get people over to Clipper, right?
Really reduces your issues.
And I think getting the barriers to applying for discounted cards to be lower is one of the biggest things we're
Yeah.
hoping that we can address. So that, because I think the discounted cards are where a lot of people, there might be an attraction to go over. We did do a fare survey in the fall. And we got like 720 responses, so it's a decent response rate for our surveys, and a lot, even of the people who indicated that they primarily pay with cash, like 80 or 90% of them have access to other methods. We asked them, so it's just that they're paying cash because it's really easy. It's a habit, it's simple, it's easy for budgeting, all those were the types of reasons people chose. But it's not that they don't have access to other methods.
I think there's other pieces too. There's the immediacy piece. You may not have the $20 to preload value.
Yeah.
And given some of the difficulties with Clipper of transferring and zones and tapping on and tapping off, I think some people, when you're lower income, like
Yeah.
the certainty of, I know it'll
Yeah.
cost
$2
or
Yeah.
whatever for that day versus I load 20, 30 bucks and I have to keep an eye on it and not know what it's gonna charge ultimately for that day.
Yeah, I think it's a really big deal.
Okay, so I'll try to make this quick for you guys. Our East Bay fares changed on January 1st, like I said, it happened on January 1st on Clipper, but it was more like the second or third for our fare boxes. But again, not enough of a difference on the fare box to justify the overtime cost. Our first schedule change under the new regional schedule takes effect this Sunday for our buses and on Monday for our ferries. Maybe one day before I retire, we'll get those on the same day of the week, but I'm also not a union negotiator, so I don't know if that will really actually happen. But in Sonoma County, the big thing for us is the rollout of improved commute bus service, Route 164 from Petaluma, just 2 trips in each direction. And the companion to that will be Route 172X with 2 trips in each direction at the same time. The rest of the trips will still be Route 172, which is a combined route that we've been running since COVID. Well, technically, we always had a couple trips that were a combined service, but the current arrangement's been in place since COVID.
What do you mean combined?
So Petaluma and Roanoke Park Santa Rosa on a single commute route. And we've always done that like for like the first or last trip of the day. But since COVID, all of the trips have been combined. And our customers would rather not have that arrangement. So by splitting, at least at the busiest time of day, Roanoke Park and Santa Rosa will have a much faster trip into the city. And Petaluma riders will now have an expanded service footprint back out into East Petaluma. Which reminds me, Jared, there is still that one bus stop sign question. If that one sign got updated so that we can just put our decal on it or not. So let me know because they're out this week putting the signs up.
So the X will go straight to San Francisco after Roanoke Park?
Yeah. So it'll be Roanoke Park Expressway and then the next stop will be the toll plaza, just like in the olden times. And then and the 164 will run, the East Petaluma route is along South McDowell Boulevard primarily. But the stop at the, I guess we call it East Side Transit Center, but with the Safeway area as well. Let's see. We are kicking off this month, toll increase public process. I think it'll probably be like our last cycle where it's for multiple years and there's, 2 or 3 or 4 options that go to the public. I don't think any of the options that go to the public fully fund the transit deficit. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out in conjunction with our strategic plan, which is still in development. We're just getting our survey findings back now from our onboard survey. I think the non-user survey data is still forthcoming. I think there's some late winter, early spring follow-up work before that's going to be available to us. But my understanding is the strategic plan would go to our board probably before, some of that last little stuff is back in. But I'm not a board member, so I can't say for sure. And then for ridership, our growth trend continues. is very, very, very modest on the bridge itself. For the months of October and November, it's up, 1 to 2%. And that's a primary funding mechanism for our transit service. So, that number is still well below the pre-pandemic amount, which means we do have that transit deficit. The good news is for Golden Gate Transit buses overall for the system, for October and November of 2023 compared to the year before, ridership is up 11% and 4% respectively. So we're still seeing an increase over 2022 values, which is nice. Nowhere near 2019 values. As I think we all know, office commuting is still far below what it was pre-pandemic, and it doesn't seem like that will be changing with a 37% office vacancy rate in San Francisco. And then of the offices that are used, people are more towards a 2 or 3 day a week pattern rather than 4 or 5 days. The ridership increase on ferry continues to be better than it is for our buses. And so for those 2 months, it's 19% and 23% compared to the previous year, same months, but still well below pre-pandemic levels. But I would say ferry has been catching up better than bus has. And it's not really a Sonoma County service change, but I'll say that on Monday, we are increasing the number of crossings on our Larkspur ferry service as an enticement to really try to pull out some more people who are thinking about it, and they just want, like a 1 or 2 more ferries to just get them over that edge to say, well, I can go into the city on the days that I need to on the ferry. That's of course harder to do on bus just because of the ongoing, nationwide shortage of bus operators. But we have been making some headway on that. And so that's what allowed us to make this very modest service improvement starting next week. I think that's it for me.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to other business comments and announcements.
I have an announcement.
Sure.
On the coordinated claim. This was late, so it didn't make the agenda, so I'll be quick. This is a preliminary draft that we put together after meeting with the county auditor last Friday. And just to be quick here, our revenues are down. I guess actually, if we want to look at the big sheet first, and kind of explain what that. At the 23-24 is the last bottom of the sheet. You can see the first 2 quarters were below the prior year quarters, as was the 4th quarter of 22-23. If you look here, this goes back to 97-98. We haven't had any 3 consecutive quarters down for quite some time. In fact, back to 2008-2009. So it's a little troubling, but the state budget is in debt, $60-some billion. So, but I think that's 2 other things compared to that. So this is just local working spending and sales tax. It'll be interesting to see if the 3rd quarter comes back. Sometimes that happens. But we will see here in another 2.5 months. So how this works for the coordinated claim, you look on the 2nd page there, 1st page of the claim. We have the adopted fiscal year 24 TDA estimate, which we estimated a year ago and included in the claim 33,200,000. Our revised estimate is around 30,600,000. And then the auditor's 25 estimate is about almost 3% above the revised number for this year. So next year we're at 31.5, which is still quite a bit down from our estimate funds for this year. Overall, when you compare the fiscal year 2025 estimate with the adopted 24 estimate, we're down 5.2%. When you compare the revised 24 estimate with the auditor's fiscal year 25 estimate, then this is up about 3%. But I think the big number is we're down 5 off our estimate. And so that just translates into the formula, which nothing has changed. We'll distribute $29,725,850 to the transit operators. 7.3 or 7.4 million goes to Golden Gate, which is down 7.8 in 23-24. And I guess the 23-24, since the numbers won't really materialize, there will be some correction at the end of the fiscal year with rescissions from MTC. And most operators here all have a balance, and so they'll fund the allocation instructions, but just your ongoing balance will be adjusted. So that's it. On the transit mall, all the contracts increase 2.94%. So for the transit mall's county contribution, I just took the 105,715 by 3%. You feel different, we can talk about that. And same with Golden Gates contribution to the transit mall. We will get the final, I guess, the regional fund estimate from ETC about the first or second week of February, which will have kind of the final number. You will have our estimated carryover numbers from last fiscal year into fiscal year, and we'll have SCTA estimates. You know, there's a lot more to come. This was just something we got done early, so especially since it's bad news, that's we learn about it. So
Thanks for providing this example. Do you have any inkling on STA numbers? How they're looking at it?
I don't, and I don't know. That's, you know, I did comment about the state budget that actually play into this. Find out that stuff. And I just saw a story on the state budget that I think 5.1 billion in transit funds have been. It didn't say they were cut; they were delayed. So you're delayed for a year, they're all cut. If it's well, if it's capital or so I'm sure that CTA and CalAC will be on that and just get some information. That's
Thanks, Brad.
more on this next month. But
Yeah.
it's just
We'll bring back a preliminary graph next month and then an action item in March.
I was wondering, is there any updates on bike sharing?
Yeah, I was gonna catch you if I didn't have time to say something here. We just executed our contract with Drop Mobility yesterday. And we are getting an email out shortly to the working group members to schedule monthly meetings. And so kind of just getting the preliminary things set up, getting all the information on the planning work that we did previously on the site locations together to send over to bike share company as well.
What's the new company name?
Drop Mobility. And then we are getting ready to kick off a little public survey on branding. The company it's white labeled, so we can come up with our own branding. It's not something we did in the past contract, so it was the company using their name, so we don't have anything predetermined and are trying to come up with ideas that really fit both Sonoma County and Marin County, but that aren't too long and difficult to say. So we kind of put together a little short list. We're going to send it out to the working group first for some voting and other ideas, and then once we get input from the working group, we'll send it out more broadly, a little public survey, and try to come up with a name.
About Soma Bike Share. MA.
We actually had that on the list earlier, and somebody thought it was maybe confusing with Snow Mountain Village and the Soma district. Anyway, maybe it's not, maybe that's fine, but I think that yeah, we actually did have that one.
Great.
Yeah, so still looking to get operations going this summer.
Can you, have me on that board?
Yeah.
List, please. I know Owen was on TAC. but
Yeah.
keep me in the loop.
Yeah, and do you want Owen to be on as well? Or will you be the lead for Smart?
I don't know.
Okay,
Can you just put us both on there?
Yeah. yeah. All right, anything else? Okay, thank you all. Adjourn.
That's what happens when you cancel.